Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jacqueline Dorsey of Lean Frontiers, and I'll serve as your host today. I'm excited to bring to you today a short webinar on the attendee experience for the Kata Skill Camp, facilitated by Beth Carrington from the W3 Group and Klaus Schmidt from Hirschvogel Incorporated. So they together will be delivering our short presentation. We will set aside some time for a Q&A. So if you have questions, please submit them using the toolbar, and I'll field those questions towards the end. So for now, let me turn things over to Beth.
All right. Good morning, everyone, or in some cases, good afternoon. My name is Beth Carrington. I'll be facilitating the conversation today with Klaus Schmidt from Hirschvogel. And so let's begin. Beth Carrington from the W3 Group. I'm one of the W3 Group partners and a trainer and consultant. Got over 25 years as a lean practitioner. I am a Kata master coach. Been working with Kata since about 2008, working with a host of organizations deploying Toyota Kata within their operations. And I'm a lifelong learner, I like to say, never stopping learning. And so that's about who I am. With me today is Klaus Schmidt from Hirschvogel. Hello, Klaus. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, Beth. Good afternoon, everybody. Here from Columbus, Ohio. My name is Klaus Schmidt, and I'm with Hirschvogel. I started with Hirschvogel in 2003 in Germany, and in 2006 I was transferred here to Columbus, Ohio. Right now I'm working here as a Hirschvogel production system coordinator in the plant function. And Hirschvogel Automotive is a family-owned global operating forging company, which is in her weight range the #1 worldwide. I think so that's enough from the Hirschvogel Group and from my person, and I was an attendee at the 2014 Kata Skill Camp at Novartis.
Excellent. Yeah, so Klaus and I attended. I was one of the master coaches at that Kata Skill Camp at Novartis, and Klaus was one of the attendees. So we're going to go back and forth today and just talk about that experience. By the way, Hirschvogel is going to be a Kata Skill Camp host site. They'll be, we W3 Group and Lean Frontiers partner and deliver this great training opportunity, skill development opportunity, and Hirschvogel has agreed to host this event April 28th, 29th, and 30th of this year. And by the way, at the time of registration, if you enter the code webinar, you'll receive a $100 discount for the registration fee. So that's a nice little bump there. So our purpose today, when Klaus and I talked, we were saying our purpose is really to share information about the Kata Skill Camp itself, not about Toyota Kata and the Improvement Kata, Coaching Kata. And we're here to share an attendee's perspective of the Kata Skill Camp. So again, what we're not going to cover is the detail of the Improvement Kata, Coaching Kata, but I wanted to send you to 2 webinars posted both on the W3 Group website and Lean Frontiers. These 2 websites really go into more of the detail on the course content. There's one called Kata and Human Resources. So I share some experience with a human resource manager that is a Kata practitioner. And also there's another called TWI in Kata, where Oscar wrote and I talk about the relationship and the connection between Kata behavior and TWI, training within industry. So those, if you're interested more in the content, I'll point you to those 2 webinars. So what we are going to cover today is the Kata Skill Camp itself. 5 main points we're going to be touching on. One is the teaching approach. How do we go about teaching those concepts? The second is what are the learning objectives of the Kata Skill Camp. We're going to talk about the agenda, the instructors, the course structure. touch briefly on who should attend, and then talk about some attendee key takeaways from the December 2014 Novartis event. So with that, Klaus, let's begin. Most importantly, along the way, we'll get Klaus's perspective.
Okay, so perspective.
Yep. So let's talk, Klaus, about the teaching approach that we did. Pretty experiential. Opportunity, no processes. We chunk the teaching and then have immediate practice. So throughout the 3 days, you get a chunk of PowerPoint and some training, and then we immediately go out and apply that and practice it. We get to role play with master coach feedback and guidance, and most importantly, we get to practice throughout those 3 days. So here's a skill development roadmap that we have that kind of talks about how you acquire. In this case, it's the improvement kata skill, but it could be any skill. It typically starts with some self-service, or what I would call passive learning. Then we can move into initial coached practice, where you're prepared for practice on your own. This is where the Kata Skill Camp falls across a range of everything from simulations to practitioner days to some on-site practice. But the Kata Skill Camp, we believe, is one of the best ways to get that initial coached practice. Then you can pop over into regular practice, your own organization, and then into daily behavior. All of the content is based on Mike Rother's book, Toyota Kata, subtitled Managing People for Improvement, Adaptiveness, and Superior Results. And as Mike likes to say, to learn a new skill, practice a kata. And that's what the Kata Skill Camp is all about. Before I begin and turn it over to you, Klaus, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what is a kata, because we use that word. You'll be hearing it throughout the webinar today. A kata is a routine you practice so it becomes a habit. We're most familiar with that term in martial arts, but we also use it in the improvement kata, coaching kata, where you have a routine, a structured routine to practice. The beginner can practice very rigidly at first, right? So you have hopefully daily repetition, because neuroscience says short but frequent practice is most effective for learning a new habit. Then you have coaching, corrective feedback, and then you begin to have mastery over that practice and skill and embedded behavior. And these are the routines that we practice throughout the Kata Skill Camp. The 4 routines of the improvement kata, and the instructing coaching behavior, and the very rigid coaching kata used in the coaching cycles at the end of the improvement kata routines. And here's a photo out of an actual Kata Skill Camp where we have a learner. So this is an individual playing the role. In this case, he actually is the process owner, the learner, and the coach. And the second coach, not always present, but they're very frequently. And these roles are actually role-played during the Kata Skill Camp. To role play for a time as the learner, working with him directly, doing PDCAs, doing your various assessments. You're coached, so you get to role play as a learner being coached, then you get to role play as a coach, and then you get to role play as a second coach, helping teach the coaching behavior to the coach. So that was a lot, Klaus, a lot of talking on my part, but I was wondering if you could maybe share your perspective on your experience during the Novartis event and this experiential learning opportunity.
I have to say, at this Novartis Kata Skill Camp, I was impressed how this role playing working, and how we put this. We have it here under point 2, chunking the learning and practice in different elements and mix it. So with So the day wasn't, let me say, too long. Most of the time the day was too short.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
you was going from one step to the next step. And with all this, with this role playing, going back to the meeting room, learning again, go through some slides, get another skill level, let me say it like this, and then you go back and learn directly and do in practice. And that was, I think so for me, the key is to do this here. And I think so even for the future, if you do this, you have to do this on a daily basis.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that was, yeah, because I remember I was on the team with you, and it was great, the interaction we got to have with the actual people in the process, and, you know, the chunked learning. We learned a little bit. Trevor led us through some materials, and then we actually went to our storyboard and practice, and then went out to the process. It was a lot of fun. It is a fun day, fun 3 days.
Yeah, that was impressive when you with this coach on site, if he is asking the right questions. We saw these questions in this little picture, one slide before, so or 2 slides before. Yeah, here is a card with all these questions. If you use these questions really good, so you can lead the learner and the team in the right direction. And that was very impressive how this is working.
Excellent.
Sometimes I was impressed when you put me in the direction that I even told you some numbers, what we would like to achieve.
Right, right. And the prediction, you had to give me a prediction for your PDCA, for your experiment.
Yeah.
A little course correction from a coach, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about what our learning objectives are. And so we believe there are some key learning objectives. We want all the participants to really understand the power and purpose of that deliberate practice in developing a mindset. What you talked about earlier, Klaus, you know, ultimately this becomes your daily, part of your daily routine and your daily practice. We want all the participants to really appreciate the link between the mindset and culture. And so you deliberately practice a behavior, and it begins to affect your mindset and then ultimately culture of an organization. We want participants to grasp the relationship between the scientific methodology and innovation, right? Plus that thing we were just talking about in terms of doing an experiment, creating a prediction, and then running your experiment and comparing those results that plan, do, check, act. And then practice, practice, practice the improvement kata and coaching kata under the guidance of your coach so that participants are prepared to effectively practice all of the roles in their environment to build new skills. So, Klaus, I'd like you just to reflect on, if you could, if you want to share some of your reflections on these learning objectives and were they fulfilled, and maybe talk a little bit about that.
So when we go through this, when you see all these learning objectives which you mentioned earlier here, I think the one important part is if you go through a training like this and you would like to do something later, your company. So you have to change your daily routine.
Right.
So we talked about this at the Novartis Skill Camp here. You have to find a time spot during your day where you say, okay, 10, 15, 20 minutes. This time from your daily routine you take only for this going through the storyboard with your group.
Yep.
If this is not working and you're doing too much different stuff, you cannot concentrate on this one thing. And that is exactly what's mostly happening. Try to do too much stuff. Here, it's very important that you follow these rules, that you go through this process with your team. And here, I think so that was the great stuff what we learned at Novartis, that we were staying together in this team, even changing the rules. But we worked, we was going through the process, we made some experience, We made some experiments. We learned together, and that was, I think, so for me, the most successful thing.
Yeah.
This is learning at these 3 days. And finally, what I was impressed when our meeting was, or when our skill camp was over. So these guys from Novartis was sitting together and say, okay, and this is now our starting day. So I think so. You guys asked us what is the most important day after this skill camp.
Yeah.
The most important day is the day after the skill camp. You have to start.
Yeah, and you mentioned that yesterday when we were talking, how they kicked us out of the room. You know, that was the end of the skill camp, and their executive sponsor said, "Okay, everyone from Novartis, please stay, and we're going to, you know, talk about how we're going to build on what we've already started here." So that, as you said, that day 4, it was pretty neat. So I'm glad you. It was insightful of you to bring that forward.
Yep.
And how was it to be an outsider? So, you know, you were talking about, you didn't know anything about, you know, the vaccine process and the process we were working on. How is it to be a learner in an unfamiliar process?
I think so. That's a great experience because I sometimes like it here in our company when we go through a process to have someone here which is not, we would say, a little bit blindfolded, you know, which is totally fresh, open mind, and you step in and say, okay, I see here something, what we can change. So other guys will say, what, we can change this? Not possible.
Right.
And for this you need a totally free mindset. And that's for me, was it easy to say, okay, let us try this, and the other guys say, hey Klaus, you're really sure we should try this? And they say, hey, why not? Let us try it. And then we made our experience through this test, what we did, and then we could say, okay, that would be, sometimes you cannot use everything what you try to do, but even little steps can help you in the other direction to make the big step.
To really get some great learning.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks. I'm going to move on a little bit and talk about the structure of the class. So what we do is we have outside participants come to the host site, and we're split into teams of about 5 people each. And then host site participants are spread across the team. So Klaus, you and some of your people get to embed yourself in the teams. We have process subject matter experts. You know, they're actively involved. So, you know, the person that you can talk to about running those experiments, you know, are readily available and involved. And then the Kata Skill Camp is structured to minimize classroom time and maximize practice at the process and at the storyboards. And the master coaches or instructors are assigned a maximum of 3 teams each, so they can actively guide activity in the classroom and at the process. Here's our group of W3 group master coaches. You know, it's a group dedicated to developing and delivering high-impact skill-based training in all aspects of Toyota Kata and Lean. We have many Lean expertise and experts in the group. The agenda itself is across the 3 days. Day 1, we start with a little bit of the theory behind the Kata methodologies, but again, our idea is to minimize classroom and maximize learning by doing. So we then begin the routines, practicing understanding the direction. Then we grasp our current conditions. So by afternoon of the first day, we are out there on the process already working. Day 2, we continue work on the process, establishing a target condition, and then beginning to PDCA or run the experiments, identify your obstacles, plan your experiments, and begin definitely well before the third day and into the third day. We're practicing coaching cycles, performing another PDCA, practicing coaching cycles and another PDCA. Then we take a moment, a short period of time at the end of day 3, talking about how to deploy in your organization, what your next steps could be, and then we close with individual and group reflection to kind of help consolidate the learning experience. So that's kind of how it went at Novartis. That's how we intend to handle that at Hirschvogel. Klaus, any comments about the course structure and agenda?
I think so about the course structure. It's pretty great that you go through all the steps when you do this Kata Skill Camp. You start as a learner. You will be, next day you will be a coach. The next day you could be the second coach. And on another day you are only a part of the group, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you play all the different rules and can learn every step. And I think so that's very important here. And from the time, sometimes, okay, depends on the experiments you do, the time could run away from you, but that's, I think, so normal. So that's even in the normal daytime, what you do here at your company, the time can run away and you have to spread it a little bit. But it's working. And I think so it was a great time to learn all this, even in a totally different area from me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember in one of the experiments, we actually had you acting as the operator.
Yeah.
And you did a great,
yeah.
And you did a great job too.
Yeah.
You get really hands-on in that experiment.
I think so that's sometimes very important that you do it on yourself to figure it out. Is it working or is it not working?
All right.
And I think so a lot of the guys which listening now to us will say, yeah, we do this here in our company too. I have to do it on my own before I can tell the other guys how they have to do it.
Right. Yeah. And talk about maximizing your learning of the effects of an experiment if you're running it yourself. I mean, not just having someone else, you know, delegate it, but doing it yourself. Again, maximize that learning.
Yeah, that helps you even, we talked about this, you make this hypothesis and say, okay, that would be my outcome. Mm-hmm. If you do it on your own and you have later to adjust this, you know what you're talking about. Then you can say, okay, it is possible to reduce the cycle time or it's not possible.
All right. Excellent. Well, great. Good. Let's talk a little bit about who should attend. You know, companies interested in beginning the process of learning and applying the improvement kata, coaching kata routines. Leaders, managers, business owners, and process leaders who want first-hand practice using the tools and routines of the improvement kata and coaching kata. And those seeking a practical, hands-on understanding of Toyota Kata as a holistic system for developing a culture of continuous improvement. So, Klaus, I know you and I talked a little bit yesterday and during the event about, you know, who do you see benefiting from attending a 3-day skill camp like this?
I would say from a 3-day skill camp like this, everybody in the company can get something, can learn something. But I think so, especially for the start, when you have it in the first time at your company, you have to make sure that even your upper management, start from the CEO down to the next manager level, that these guys are involved in this. So what we try to do here when we have the skill camp here at Hirschvogel, we try to have all the managers from the areas where we go in and where we try to change something, that these managers are involved directly from the beginning and including the CEO here. That all these guys are here involved. I got even the bookings from our guys from Germany that our Hirschvogel production leader will come in from Germany with 2 guys. Even these guys will learn here.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
that is for me very impressive, and it's, I think so even for Hirschvogel very important that we are doing this way, because when we're starting from the top and roll it out to the bottom, so even the upper management, our big bosses know what we are talking about.
Yep. Excellent. That's exciting news. I hadn't heard that. So wonderful. So I think it's a learning opportunity for all levels, all departments, right? All functional areas.
Yep.
So excellent.
You have it here on the takeaways. And
I
that's what
tried to capture notes as best I could. If I missed, I apologize. So
it's okay. So you have it mostly here on this sheet here, and we talked about this earlier. One of the key points, what I took from this skill camp, you have the daily routine. You have to find the 10, 15, 20 minutes to go with your team through this storyboard, coaching this team through this storyboard. Make sure that this process is ongoing and not stopping. I think so that's the most important part. To have something like this here, this process has to be a process. If the process stops one time, it's over. Then it's hard to push it again that it starts. As this is very often here in our company, you start something and then you have nobody who is driving this thing, it stops. And that's here the same with the storyboards. They have to be on a daily routine. And you mentioned this earlier, it has to be a habit. And when we go, we see here the current team boards which we have here. We call it here shop floor management. So yes, we're analyzing our process. We make some assumptions how we can change it. But now we're missing this point, what you have here with this Toyota Kata. I think so here we have this pretty good opportunity to say, okay, what are now our assumptions, how we go forward? What is the outcome? And if this is not the outcome, how we change it, how we adjust it. I think so I call it at the skill camp at Novartis forward thinking.
right.
And this is very important that we have this integrated in our shop floor management. And we will do this directly after the Kata Skill Camp here and start with this boards, all the additional stuff from the skill camp.
Right. Okay. I thought that was very insightful. That idea between the team board and the storyboard, as we call it, right, in the Toyota Kata. One is kind of backward looking and one is forward looking. I really appreciated that insight you brought to that. Yep.
And the other point, what you have here is under 3, all levels of the organization has to be involved.
Yep.
And you need here, and that's the point, you need the big guys which driving this whole thing and give a little bit the pressure. Because sometimes even managers say, okay, it's not so important, I have other stuff to do. And here you need even the power from your president, that he says, okay guys, that's important for us, it's important for the whole company. We have to make sure that stay on track here with, no matter how you call it, you have to be behind your systems, that you roll your system. If it stops, it stops. And then you will make no improvement. And that, I think, so in today's time, very hard. If you're making no improvements, even if it's only small improvements every day, you will stop. Okay, and the last point, you mentioned this earlier, the guys at Novartis started immediately, directly after this. And that is, I think, so when I remember it right, at the first day, the first question from Trevor was, what is the most important time here at the skill camp? So everybody was looking at what is the most important time? Lunchtime? I don't know. Then you guys mentioned, no, it's the last day, directly when we are finished with the skill camp here.
Yep.
Start at your company, and that's the most important time.
Yeah, you go and you learn a new skill. Let's say you go to a basketball skill camp or a tennis skill camp, right? If you don't go back and begin to practice and continue to practice what you've learned, it's not going to stick. And so, excellent. And I just wanted to, maybe there's a couple other participants. We had some other takeaways from some other participants as well. So, you know, I love the practice coaching cycles. Klaus, you mentioned that too, that role playing. Found it all to be highly valuable. Practicing and getting some immediate expert feedback. With many PDCA cycles, it's easier to look at failures as learning, right? That's that whole idea of, you talked about running the experiment yourself. And then it's a methodology for improvement every day.
Yep.
And the practice on actual processes, another key factor.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I think we covered everything we wanted to, Klaus. You know, the teaching approach, the learning objectives, agenda, course structure, who should attend, and some of your great key takeaways and insights. So thank you, Klaus, for sharing your perspective.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
I have to say thank you. I could learn a lot at this.
Excellent. And I look forward to hearing all about your event in April. So again, a skill development roadmap, whether it's the improvement kata or other, kind of follows this passive to initial coach practice, which prepares you for self-practice and regular practice, which then, you know, gets you to your daily practice, frequent daily coach practice, and ultimately you develop a scientific way of thinking, acting, and managing, right? And that's the end game. That's the overall objective. But this Kata Skill Camp kind of helps you prepare for that journey. To learn more, you can go to the W3 group website. Lean Frontiers website has a link there for the Kata Skill Camp. And we also have a great KataCon, as it's affectionately being called, official name, Kata Summit, going on in February. There's a link to that event. And Lean Frontiers is incorporating Kata workshops and presentations in upcoming coaching summit, TWI, HR summits, and others in the future. And again, here's this Kata Skill Camp, April 28th, 29th, and 30th. Hope you can come and join us. And again, at time of registration, you can enter the code webinar for that $100 discount. And I think that's about it. Klaus, I'm going to turn it over to Jacqueline and see if there's any questions from the audience, and we'll tackle those as they come to us.
Okay.
All right, Beth, thank you for your facilitating our session today, and Klaus, thank you also. We appreciate both your individual insights. I don't think we mentioned this previously, but today's webinar is being recorded. If you would like to review the presentation or share it with others in your organization, so you can look for an email following this webinar for a link to the recording. As for the question and answer session, we haven't had any questions submitted, but if anyone thinks of one after this ends, feel free to, we'll have Beth and Klaus's contact information, so feel free to just let us know the question and we'll get you in touch with them so we can get those answered for you.
Excellent. Jacqueline, after the last webinar, I had a couple of people reach out to me with questions, and I was able to answer those directly. So if anyone, feel free, if you have a question, and send out my email address. I'm also on LinkedIn, and you can reach me via LinkedIn or via email, and I'll get those answers back to you.
The same is for me, so you can reach me on my email address, which you have, I think so, and even you can reach me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Thanks, Klaus.
All right. Well, so again, thank you, Beth, and thank you, Klaus, and thanks to everybody who participated in today's session. And goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.